Today we're going to review some of our activities from this past week. So we worked a bit on Along Came Betty, and a lot of the material that we talked about was inspired in some way by Pat Martino, who passed away 12 days ago or something like that. And so earlier in the week, we um, talked about the some of the diminished concepts are so taking a shape like this and changing it around. So that was something that I learned about just uh, reading a little bit of his instructional material as I was researching for the Sunday live talk. And then a video I saw of him quite a ways back, and I talked about this on the live talk too, is a similar thing with the augmented triads, where you could use that as sort of a I think the word he uses is parent and child. So your goal, let's say, is to learn certain shapes. So you use this symmetrical kind of pattern to see if you can make changes to it, and then get it going, get those shapes going from there. So we had a little bit more of kind of shapes and things going at the beginning of the week. So and then as the week progressed, we got into Along Came Betty a little bit. So um, that's a tune that he played and recorded. So be sure to check that out. And I've done a video. It's probably been quite a while, but I've done a video on that as well. Um, so all right, well, let's kind of get started and move through some of the things and do a review of all that we talked about quite a lot. So I'd love to find a transcription, or maybe just write out um, his solo on that. We'll see if we can find that at some point. But we took a look at a Jimmy Rainey solo on it, and it's really good to transcribe, or in general just kind of get an idea for what particular musician plays on particular changes or particular chords. Um, so that can be really pretty instructive. So it looks like we looked through the whole thing. So and it's nice just to kind of melodically to get a sense for the shape of the lines. So that was really instructive, and just you can take it kind of chord by chord, note by note. Also taking a look at the contour of the lines and all that. So that was, I think, Monday and Tuesday, maybe Wednesday too. Yeah, I think so. So we went over that. I think it's just one chorus of the changes there. then we took a look at this past Thursday at some comping patterns and things. um, over the tune. So then that kind of ties us into, and we talked about our articulations and durations of tone. So here we have long and then accented, short, so think about short versus long and held. And in that particular talk, we didn't work a lot on uh, chord voicings, but we did talk about that in the practice ideas and concepts. And it's one of the kind of running themes that we have is this idea of creating kind of smooth voice leading. So we picked a voicing type, which is drop 3, and we used that to guide us, and we used basically root position and second inversion chords. And what that does for us is when we go through circle fifths, like this B minor 7 to the E7, we get this some of the, you might say, core elements or the shell voicings. We get those two notes, the 7 and the 3 respectively, on the strings 3 and 4. So what you can kind of do on the tune, or a tune in this case, Along Came Betty, is you can start, maybe taking so you could take some of those core elements, and then you could maybe add other tones above that. So so that's like your the core element of the chord, and then we're thinking about maybe some of the other notes that might sort of orbit that in a way, and so we can have roots or nines and make these decisions on based on what we want to um, have ring out. So the thing that we want to be able to do is be able to play these kind of core voicings, whether they be drop 3 or drop 2, or if they're not drop at all. So, which kind of tends to be a little bit tough to play, but if we can follow some of the and be aware of where some of these tones are. Yes, let's say we have um, let's go back here and let's say we have B minor 7. This is kind of a little tough to play, but um, kind of a cool voicing. Kind of B minor 9. So right now the 7 here, the flat 7 is on the 4th string. The flat third is on the 2nd string. So that gives me a little space in the middle of those two notes to play this chord. And I'm just putting a root here. You could also, maybe have the 5th. This gets really kind of tough, but having the awareness of where some of those tones are is kind of what we're trying to get at. And drop 3 and drop 2 chords are very useful for us on guitar because you take them as a whole and say just on average, they're fairly comfortable to play, and they end up within a fairly narrow range of frets, right? Like that chord that I just played there. That's going from 3rd fret. This is 2nd string, 3rd fret. This is 6th fret on the 3rd string, 7th fret on the 4th string. See, that's tough to get to. And then 5th string, 9th fret. Right, so that's pretty hard. So kind of on a practical level, some of those drop 2 voicings, drop 3 voicings are pretty accessible and kind of work out nicely too, because when you're playing maybe that kind of sound, maybe like gypsy jazz, or maybe like Freddie Green style. Or just anything, having the fingers on contact, pretty easy to mute that 5th string, right? With the finger down low there, and pretty easy to mute the 1st string, and then you have these other notes. So you get kind of this really fairly stable string control with the fretting hand there. So pretty useful on that level too. Okay, so those are chord voicings that you can use in a lot of different contexts on this tune and others. So that's kind of the fun thing too, is that every tune that you study, you're learning like a lot of other tunes, because a lot of these things come up again and again. Okay. So let's take a look at a little bit of what we did with some of these diminished sounds. So earlier in the week, we started with kind of arpeggio sounds, and then decided to move one of the notes, right? So let's say we have this A flat diminished. We took this tone down a half step. We got this root position G7. Same thing here. Now we have B flat, 3rd inversion. Okay. 2nd inversion, D flat. 1st inversion, E7. And then we move that around around the neck. If you want to take that really far, you can do all sorts of positions, but we did it in 4 different areas, which is pretty thorough. Um, but you could certainly do these combinations in different spots. We also looked at the half diminish, so that tone kind of goes in a different direction rather than down like it did to G7, kind of going up. So, okay, here, same thing. So we're getting a tone going upward. And then we're really trying to keep track of where the roots are for those. Um, and then, I'm giving a kind of quick overview and review here, but I want to think about the chord that's listed on it, and play a chord, play the sound. Um, so those levels of playing and investigation are important. So hearing it, hearing the chord, and then playing melodically with it, um, or after it, that's going to help internalize. So your ear kind of accepts the note. So when you go to play somewhere, um, and the keyboardist plays something, or another guitarist or whoever, and you hear that sound, you've played certain notes in that context. So it's sort of helpful in that way. It's also helpful to have um, a reference point, just sort of visually and spatially on the instrument, so that you say, okay, also when I play that melody, I have a little bit of an idea of where a chord is, whether I'm playing it or not. I have an idea of what a shape is that's kind of nearby. So it's helpful in that respect as well. Then we changed gears a little bit later in the week, and we talked about um, some of the um, major sevens. So we could use these diminished chords to come up with major seven inversions too, which seems like we're pretty distant, right, from a diminished seven. It kind of is, but we just changed 2 notes. So we're taking that same A flat diminished, and we're just kind of coming up with really a major and the relative minor, the key of four, a key of 5 flats. Okay, yeah, and then we did this on different string combinations, stuff like that. It's kind of cool to, take some of these um, chords and just kind of get a sense for looking through this here. If I got some slides moved around, but anyway, so we can get to these different kind of tonalities. Key of two flats. Get the key of 1 sharp. Relative minor and major. Just based on that shape. And also, key of four sharps, and the relative major and minor. So pretty interesting. It's sort of like the diminished sort of sound. It's just sort of like a little window, you might say, or a passageway, or sort of portal. Don't get too extreme about it, but um, it's an interesting how we just change two notes and we visit these kind of distant um, tonalities, right? So it's kind of wild in that respect. We did a little bit of a more theoretical talk on practice ideas and concepts, and that was on Wednesday. I'll talk a little bit more about what we did on Monday and Tuesday. I think we did this particular talk on Wednesday. And so we got into, and that's what or did I say? So theory and fingerboard. So we're going to be studying the fingerboard in a real complete and kind of thorough way, and also tying it into music theory. And so we're going to have some kind of specific theory talks. So this is one of these where we get a visual kind of representation of the chromatic scale. And this I'm just really, I just kind of was setting this up and talking about it, but some intervals there. But we're kind of getting a visual idea of symmetry in music as far as intervals go. So diminished seven, um, these tones are kind of evenly spaced apart. So if we draw a circle and get the chromatic tones somewhat evenly around them, and then draw lines through minor thirds, just like I just played, and then back to the beginning, we get this kind of square shape, this kind of very, all sides being equal and all that. And then you see there on B7, we shift just that one note right back one half step from C, and we get B7, right? And then just how it almost looks distorted when you draw it. So now B to D sharp is the longest shape. This A to B is a shorter shape, and they still have those two minor thirds. So of course it's not really distorted, but our view of this sort of even even sides and a box there is sort of a beauty to that. And then maybe there's some beauty in this asymmetrical one too, but it kind of looks like there's something wrong with it in a way. It's like you wouldn't build a room with those dimensions. But it's interesting, to think about that and how that's sort of the staple of what we play is like the more asymmetrical kind of sound. So it's interesting that the ear, the way we perceive, you know, kind of the sound of a diminished is it sounds very, dissonant. It feels unsettled. It feels like we want to go to something else, right? But those so the ear, hearing that, um it's sort of it's not maybe quite as beautiful, but in its own way, I guess it works that way. um so another just kind of cool thing about this, which we did talk about, you can say, okay, well, we have four notes. I'm moving on to D7 now. So we have four notes, that C diminished 7, and then we're, let's say, uh, dropping this E flat to D, so we come up with a D7 arpeggio. We don't, we can also add that back in there. We get kind of a dominant pentatonic with a flat 9, which is a really useful scale for playing 5/1s, especially in minor, but also in major. So we took a look at the dominant sevenths, and then we took a look at half diminished. So similar intervals that we're working with, but we're kind of pushing that note from, we're looking at everything from the perspective of the diminished for this talk. So we're kind of pushing that C upward rather than downward here. So we get that, but we're starting with this. So we get kind of a third inversion of D sharp minor 7 flat 5. So you can see it's a similar kind of shape, right, to the other one. Dominant sevenths. And then of course we went through 4 of those. And one little kind of cool thing too that you can think about with these is if you're playing, let's say you're playing a 2 5, and this is a sort of interesting thing. I was thinking about this, when I was reading, just read a little excerpt of Pat Martino. I really like his perspective on things, at least from what I've heard, and his playing, of course. But I was thinking about like the sort of a little bit opposite direction of how I normally think about it, which you'll see what I mean here in a moment. So let's say we have a 2. Well, why don't we use something like 2 5 in C minor? So if you have a D minor 7 flat 5, and then you play D diminished, that helps outline that 2 5, right? Okay, and then you could keep playing that diminished scale on that. Just like we said, like that G7, you can play A flat diminished 7 on that. Like you get the flat 9 and it's rootless. But you get the 5 and the flat 7 and the third. So that's a real practical. So these things have really very practical applications to them. So they kind of on the surface seem like a little theoretical or a little bit, different. But actually one little exercise I've taken folks through from time to time is taking a chord. Sort of reminds me of this. Take like a C major 7, C dominant 7, C minor 7, C minor 7 flat 5, and then C diminished. So it's kind of instructive to take all that. How many chord qualities is that? That's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. So you have the 5 basic chord qualities for that. So that's pretty cool. And you could do that with all sorts of inversions. So, but you always end up going to that same shape. Let's say we take C major first inversion, drop 2, say dominant 7, minor 7, minor 7, flat 5, then diminished. So all the inversions of the diminished are all the same shape. If you voice them the same way, they all end up being the same. So it's just very interesting to kind of consider all that. All right, let me get back to theory and fingerboard, and see if I can get back to. Not sure if I open these up or not. Oh, I think I did. Okay. I thought I kind of prepped these. Let me bring these over for you. So all right. So we also took a look at some position playing and also anchored ourselves in the A flat diminished and then compared that to some other shapes, and then we looked at it as sort of a position shape to play in. So we have diminished, and then the half diminished. So kind of comparing, and so we talked about some exercises that you can do. So we did that with the half diminished, and we also did that with the dominant 7, and we took those all kind of up the neck. So if you've heard of caged, so this is kind of relating to that. So we have 5 positions, and the diminished pattern. It's kind of hard to nail down. That's it's sort of like, in a way, it's like so easy. It's hard. I don't know if probably doesn't make any sense, but so what I mean by that is, like, it's hard to just say, okay, this is this position and clearly, delineate. Maybe I should try to do that. That would probably be a good give a good visual, and maybe I'll give that a try. I don't even know if it's really gonna work, but it's sort of and then the other aspect that it's kind of difficult is it's hard, at least for me, it's kind of hard to, since all of the kind of inversions and everything are so symmetrical. It's just kind of hard to say, okay, this is first inversion now, because it's like, just seems like another root position. They're all kind of so much the same. So anyway, we kind of see how we can get to taking something, like I said, if it's sort of easy-ish, you could take something that, as far as chords, like I talked about, just have this one shape on the first 4 strings, drop 2 kind of voicing, right? And then so you could change it little different ways to make it something else, and learn a lot of different chords in the process. So we can apply that to arpeggios, and that's why we anchored ourselves with some of these chord shapes. So we had this, G7, and that can kind of anchor us. That's another thing he talked about in some of the materials that I read, so I was inspired in that way. Also to relay that. Okay, so yeah, so that's. Let's see if we've got. Oh, there's another thing we did in um, fingerboard theory and fingerboard. We talked about these pentatonic scales, scale shapes, and moving from one to the next. So that's another thing that I'm working on emphasizing um, in my teaching is how things change over time. So we have these two guitar necks. And we're using some of these pentatonic scales to outline some of the changes, right? So when you go from the B minor pentatonic to the E dominant pentatonic, how we get this change here. So we can use pentatonic scales to outline changes. So we went through that. So one thing I really recommend doing in general is working on changing from one chord to another, whether it's with arpeggios or pentatonic scales or chords, whatever you're doing, and practice that change. Practice those two things and go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Everybody. Well, I think that's pretty much most of what we talked about this past week. So cover quite a lot, and I'm thinking I'm gonna spend a little more time on Along Came Betty next week because is it is a little involved, and I got a little bit into these diminished talks early in the week, so that kind of consumed a bit of time. But I'm glad we did all that because I think that's really kind of an important concept. I think something that's going to help folks out. So, all right. Well, I'm going to hang out here for a minute or two, noodle around, and let me know if you have any questions. This is part of a live stream. Okay, so playing around there a little bit with Along Came Betty. Not sure if I'm gonna do a new melody video on that. I'll have to go back and listen to what I did. There are certain videos and things that I like to redo. They're sound wise, mostly sound wise, but so so over the last what 5 or 6 years, trying to learn how to record, trying to learn how to mix, how to master tunes and things. Been quite challenging. So some things or maybe quite a lot of things I said, well, okay, this is for educational purposes, so maybe it's not like a CD. But that's always kind of been the goal, is try to get it to be kind of CD quality, sort of recording and mixing and mastering, and then also just recording the different instruments, and maybe some are digital and some are human, and getting everything to feel like 3 or 4 people are in a room together playing together. It's just been very challenging, and then also dealing with latency and computers, and it's hard to know where exactly everything sits. But everybody, well, thanks for checking out this video. Hope you enjoyed it, and hope you get a lot out of it, and they done well this week. So usually weekends are a little tough to get content out. So hopefully if you haven't watched all the videos yet, you can catch up with them over the weekend. But I'll definitely be back with more videos on Monday. But in the meantime, there's the Sunday live, and then on the improvisation topics, we do a Saturday afternoon workshop, 90-minute workshop weekly. So we're working on melodic structures right now. So some things inspired by Jerry Bergonzi. Everybody, well, thanks for checking this out, and I'll see you all in the next one. All right, if you're listening to the podcast edition of this talk, check out the description and visit the website at fretprince.com, and check out the YouTube channel. YouTube channel is Fret Prince. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you all very soon.